So welcome to this number theory class, first session. In this number theory, we're going to deal with the first unit. And this unit one consists of divisibility, primes, division algorithm, and Euclid's algorithm. So to start with, the basic concept we are going to see here. What is meant by a division? Let us consider two integers a and b, where a not equal to 0. Now I want to say that a divides b. A divides b. That is, a is a number dividing the number b. When is it possible? If you want to say a number a divides b means then b can be written as b is equal to ac, where c is nothing but some integer. So whenever I say a number divides another number, the number which is divided can be written as b is equal to a into c. So in this case, so this a divides b means then I can say that a is known to be a factor and b is a multiple of a. B is a multiple of a and a is a factor of b. And this notation a slash b denotes that a divides b. And if a does not divides b means we'll be using this symbolic statement. A does not divides b, a small into mark. A does not divides b. When a does not divides b, we'll be using this symbolic statement. So whenever b divides a, when a divides b or b divides c, what will be the thing here? Here I'm just considering a divides b. So when a divides b, then a is said to be a factor and b is said to be a multiple and c is nothing but some integer. C is nothing but some integer. This is the basic concept about division. Everybody, we are familiar with this. Then example I can give here, 4 divides 12. But 4 does not divides 18. So 4 divides 12 means I can say that 4 is a factor of 12. At the same time, 12 is a multiple of 4. So in this case, so a divides b means how we are writing it? B is equal to ac. Is it not? Same thing here. This 4 divides 12 means I can write 12 as 12 is equal to 4 into 3. 3 is nothing but my integer. And here, as usual, we know 4 does not divide 18. The next one example, let nn db positive integers. How many positive integers not exceeding n are divisible by d? So 2 positive integers we are taking here. And here, what is the question here is not exceeding n, beyond n, not beyond n, that is not exceeding n, how many integers are there which are divisible by d? That is the question. So the small solution they are given here is very, very easy. They will be of the form. It is basic. It is understood that they are of the form of dk, where k is a positive integer. Just like multiple sets all. And this dk lies between 0 and n, if and only if this k lies between some 0 and n by p. Okay, so there are this much of positive integers not exceeding n that are divisible by d. Okay, this is a basic solution. It's very, very easy also. Just you can go for an example also in this case. Next, a small theorem. Let a, b and c be integers. Then if a divides b and a divides c, then a divides its sum of the denominators. If a divides b and a divides c, then a divides b plus c. Okay, this is the first one. Second one, what they're asking is, if a divides b, then a divides bc. So a divides b means then it's multiple. A divides bc, where some c belongs to some integer c. So if a divides some number b, then a will be dividing its multiples of B also. That is the meaning for the second one. Third one, what represents? If A divides B and B divides C, then A divides C. Okay, if A divides B and B divides C, then A divides C. Okay, now in all these three, let us see the proof for the first one. Second and three is just left to you all people. First one, suppose A divides B and A divides C, it is given. Okay, so according to the definition of divisibility, A divides B means then B will be equal to some AC, is it not? Here we am writing that B is equal to some AS, where S is an integer. At the same time, A divides C means then C is equal to AT. Here also T is an integer. So B is equal to AS and C is equal to AT. Okay, since A divides B and A divides C, I'm able to write that B is equal to AS and C is equal to AT. Now next, just add these two terms. Add these two terms, B plus C. So B plus C equal to what we're getting it? AS plus AT, that is equal to, I'm just taking A outside. So I'll be left with inside the bracket S plus T. So A into S plus T, which means, so what is the meaning here? B plus C is equal to AS plus AT, that is equal to A into S plus T. Okay, just forget about the center term, just combine the first and last one. So B plus C is equal to A into S plus T. So B plus C is equal to A into S plus T means what is the meaning? This A divides B plus C. Otherwise, this A is a factor of B plus C. Otherwise, B plus C is a multiple of A. That is the meaning, is it not? So A is a factor of B plus C, otherwise B plus C is a multiple of A. All these things it denotes. So this all these things means what is the meaning actually? It is nothing but A divides B plus C. So A divides B plus C means B plus C can be written as A into some integer. SNT or integer, its addition is also an integer. Okay, so A divides B plus C. So this gives the explanation for the first one. If A divides B and A divides C, then A divides B plus C. The second one and third one is left to you. It's very, very easy. Just you can follow from the previous one. The next corollary, if A, B and C are integers such that A divides B and A divides C, then A divides MB plus NC whenever M and N are integers. Here they are giving the condition that M and N are integers. Okay. So what is the thing here? And moreover, in the previous slide, A divides B, then A divides BC. Is it not? So A divides B, then A divides BC means C belongs to Z. So corollary, what is given here? A divides B, A divides C, then A divides MB plus NC. Okay. So from this, what can I say? If A divides B, I can say that A divides MB, where M is an integer. At the same time, if A divides C, then A divides NC, where N is an integer. Okay. So if A divides B, I can say that A divides MB, following the second part of the previous theorem, and A divides C means A divides NC, where N is an integer. Okay. If A divides MB and A divides NC, then their addition. This follows from the first one. What is the first one? A divides B and A divides C implies A divides B plus C. We have seen, is it not? Same thing we are applying here. What we are applying here? A divides MB and A divides NC means then their addition also it's getting divided by A. That is A divides MB plus NC. So this corollary follows from the second part and first part of the previous theorem. Okay. Next, primes. A positive integer p greater than 1 is called a prime if the only positive factors are p or 1 and p. Okay. So when we call a number to be a prime number, if it has, it should be greater than 1. A number, a positive integer, I'm just taking as p, which is greater than 1. I'm just going to call that number p to be a prime number. When is it possible? Only if it has the only positive factors as p and 1. That is 1 and p alone, it should be its factors. Okay. Only in such case, we call that number p to be a prime number. So when you call a number to be a prime number, we call a number to be a prime number only if it has the factors itself as well as 1. Okay. A positive integer that is greater than 1 and is not prime is called composite. At the same time, a number which is greater than 1 at the same time which is not prime number, then that number is known to be a composite numbers. So example, 7 is a prime number. 7 is a prime number because this number 7, it has only two factors, 1 as well as 7. This number can be 7 can be divided by 1. At the same time, 7 can be divided by 7 alone. Apart from that, no other numbers divides this number 7. So the 7, it has only two factors, 1 and 7 alone. So 7 is a prime number. Then what about 9 here? I'm saying that 9 is not a prime number. So 9 is not a prime number means I'm saying that 9 is a composite number. So 9, it has the factors. What are the factors? It has 1, 3, 9. So apart from 1 and 9, it has a factor 3. So this number cannot be a prime number. So we call this number to be a composite number. That's the thing given here. A number which has only positive factors as 1 and p, which is not prime, is called a composite. The next, the fundamental theorem of arithmetic. So what is the fundamental theorem of arithmetic? It denotes very, very important theorem here. It forms a basic for this number theory. So every positive number, positive integer can be uniquely written as the product of primes where the prime factors are written in order of increasing size, ascending order, increasing size. Okay. So product of primes. So every positive integer, please be careful. We have to use the word positive integer. So every positive integers can be uniquely written as the product of prime numbers. At the same time, these prime factors are written in order of increasing size. That is in terms of ascending order. So 15. So 15 can be written as 3 into 5. 3 is a one prime factor, 5 is another prime factor. It is written in ascending order C, increasing size. The next 2 into 2 into 2 into 2 into 3, that is equal to 4 into 3. 4 into 3. 17, no other way, 17 alone. 100, 2 into 2 into 5 into 5, that is equal to 2 square into 5 square. That is 512. Again, we can write in terms of prime factors. Every positive integer can be written as product of prime factors. At the same time, these prime factors should be in terms of increasing size. It should be of ascending order. That is the statement for fundamental theorem of arithmetic. For the fundamental theorem of arithmetic, these are some few examples. See, you can note it down. In all the right hand side, we'll be having only the prime factors, and all the prime factors are written only in terms of ascending order, that is in increasing size. Then some of the important statements we are going to see here. If n is a positive integer, then n has a prime divisor less than or equal to root n. If n is a composite, I'm just taking one composite integer, then it will be having some prime divisors. But those prime divisors will be less than or equal to square root of that number, square root of that n. This is easy to just you see. I'm just taking on composite numbers. It must have two prime divisors, P1 and P2, such that P1 into P2 is equal to n. And we can say that P1 and P2 cannot both be greater than root of n. Then in that case, what will you have? If both the numbers are greater than square root of n means, this P1 and P2, both the numbers are greater than square root of n means, then P1, P2 will be greater than n. But I have the statement as P1, P2 is equal to n. Then here, the fundamental theorem of arithmetic. Same thing given here, some examples, 100, 641, 991, some more examples. Large numbers, why we are representing these large numbers are, these are used for secret messages in cryptology. This is about cryptology, we'll be studying in the last unit over here. This slide is nothing but again some few examples have been given for this fundamental theorem of arithmetic. The next, if n is a composite integer, then n has a prime divisor less or equal to root n. For this, the proof is given over here. That we are talking about P1 and P2 with small expression we gave the proof for that the same theorem. But here we are going just a little bit an explanation over here. If n is composite, then n has a factor such that 1 less than a less than n, this is a statement, and that exists b belongs to z such that n is equal to ab. This is understood. Okay, where both a and b are positive integers greater than 1. So I'm just taking a composite number, then n will be having a factors in such a way that two factors I'm just taking a and b, where a lies between 1 and n and b is some integer. So n is equal to ab I'm just taking. Okay, next. In this, a less than equal to root of n, here a less than equal to root of n or b less than equal to root of n. Both should be, this can be root of n or less than equal, either a can be less than equal to root of n or b less than equal to root of n. Since otherwise, its product will be greater than root of n into root n, that is equal to n. How nicely they given the proof here, see. Fantastic proof they are given here. If just have a glance, you can understood by yourself this one. A less than equal to root 10 or b less than equal to root 10. Okay. Otherwise, what will happen? AB, if I take AB greater than root 10 and root 10, that is equal to n. So AB will be is equal to n, greater than n, AB will be greater than n. This implies what? N has here positive divisors less than equal to root 10. This implies n has here positive divisor less than equal to root n. And moreover, this divisor is either it can be prime or using the fundamental theorem of arithmetic, it has a prime divisor. Both is possible over here. In either cases, whatever be the cases, n has a prime divisor less than equal to root n. N has a prime divisor less than equal to root n. This is the thing we have proved here. That we have just spoken about in the previous slide. We spoken in terms of P1 and P2. Here we are given the detailed explanation over here. That's all, nothing else. Now I want to prove this next example. Prove that the integer 101 is prime. Now we are going to use the contrapositive form of the theorem 3. N has not a prime number divisor less than equal to root n implies n is prime. If n has not a prime divisor less than root n, this implies n is prime. Actually, what is the statement of the previous one? If n is a composite integer, then n has a prime divisor less than or equal to root n. Now we are taking just a contrapositive, that's all. N has not a prime number divisor less than or equal to root n. This implies n is prime. The same thing we are taking the contrapositive form, that's all. So the only primes not exceeding root of 101, for this number we are talking about, the only primes not exceeding root of 101 are, these are the prime numbers not exceeding 101, 2, 3, 5, 7. Since these numbers do not divide 101, we can say that 101 is a prime number. 101 is a prime number. So here we can clearly understand the concept that the only primes not exceeding square root of 101 are 2, 3, 5 and 7. They are giving this one. At the same time, what they are telling, these numbers does not divide 101. So from this, what it indicates? 101 is a prime number. The next. There are infinitely many prime numbers. So what about this theorem? This theorem indicates that there are infinitely many prime numbers. So we shall assume that there are only finitely prime numbers P1, P2, Pn. Actually, we want to prove that there are infinitely prime numbers. But what we are assuming that there are only finitely prime numbers P1, P2, so on up to Pn. Then Q is equal to, let Q is equal to P1, P2, so on up to Pn plus 1. Using the fundamental theorem of arithmetic, what can you say here? Q is a prime number, or Q can be written as a product of 2 or 4 primes. But anyway, none of the prime numbers Pj going to be divide Q. Is it not? None of the prime numbers. It can be written as a product of prime numbers, but none of the prime number is going to divide Q. Why? Because suppose this prime number divides Q, what happens then? Then that prime number Pj will divide Q minus P1, P2, so on up to Pn, that is equal to 1. This is impossible since Pa is a prime number. Okay, suppose Pj divides Q means what it implies? Pj will be dividing Q minus P1, P2, so on up to Pn equal to 1. And at the same time, this is impossible because Pj is a prime number. So therefore, none of the primes divides Q implies, so none of the prime number Pj divides Q means this implies Q is prime. Therefore, Q is not equal to Pj. It's a contradiction result. So what do we simply say? Q is a prime, we are getting it. So therefore, Q is not, but Q is not equal to Pj. It contradicts. Because we taken here Q is prime. Why we are getting this contradiction? Because we assume that there are only finitely many primes. There are only finitely many primes we assume. So our assumption finitely many primes is wrong. So the statement there are infinitely many primes is true. The remark. What is the thing given here is this is just you can have a glance for it, nothing else is there. You will be familiar with this, I think so. The largest prime known has been an integer of the form 2 power p minus 1, where p is also a prime number, and these primes are known to be Mersenne primes. Okay. So largest prime is known to be 2 power p minus 1, where p is also a prime, and these types of primes are known to be the Mersenne primes. An example here, see here for excellent example they are given here. 2 square minus 1 is equal to 3, and all that is each and every prime number can be written in this form. 2 square minus 1 equal to 3, and 2 cube minus 1 equal to 7, and 2 power 4 minus 1 equal to 31. All these are prime numbers, Mersenne primes, where 2 power 11 minus 1 equal to 2047 is not a Mersenne prime number since 2047 equal to 23 into 89. 23 into 89. So this number is not a Mersenne prime number. Mersenne prime number. And it's only a small statement. The proof is not necessary for you. The prime number theorem, just remember this theorem alone. The ratio of the number of primes not exceeding x and x divides ln of x approaches 1 as x grows without bound. That's all. There is no limit for this one, without bound. The next division algorithm. Let a be an integer and d be a positive integer. Then there are unique integers q and r such that r lies between 0 and d, that is r greater than or equal to 0, less than d, such that a is equal to dq plus r. In this statement, d is called the divisor, and a is called the dividend, and q is called the quotient, and r is called the remainder. Okay, so d is the divider, q is the quotient, r is the remainder, and a is the dividend. So this A is divided by the divisor D. When you divide the number A by D, I'm getting a quotient Q and I'm getting a remainder R. Okay. So this is the division algorithm. There are unique integers where Q and R are unique. Where Q and R are unique. What is the condition for R here? R should be greater than or equal to 0, but it should be less than the divisor. But it should be less than the divisor. So example here, when we divide 17 by 5, we have 17 is equal to 5 into 3 plus 2, where 17 is known to be the dividend and 5 is called the divisor, 3 is called the quotient and 2 is called the remainder. Okay. So we divide, this is the division algorithm. Another example, what happens when we divide minus 11 by 3? Just we are dividing the number minus 11 by 3. Note that the remainder cannot be negative because what we have seen in the previous one, there are unique integers Q and R such that with R is greater than or equal to 0, we have seen here. Greater than or equal to 0 or less than T. The condition is given here. So, note the remainder cannot be negative. So minus 11 is equal to 3 into minus 4 plus 1. So in this, which is the divisor here? Minus 11 is the dividend. 3 is the, minus 11 is the dividend. 3 is known to be the divisor. Minus 4 is known to be the quotient. And 1 is known to be the remainder. So we should be very careful in applying this division algorithm. If you get the remainder as in terms of negative means, then in such case the division algorithm fails. So only if the numbers with the remainder is greater than or equal to 0 as well as less than the dividers, less than the divider, divisor, this division algorithm plays over here. Greatest common divisor, that is GCD. Let A and B be two integers, not both zeros. Any one can be 0. The largest integer D such that D divides A and D divides B is called the greatest common divisor of A and B. I'm just taking two integers, both numbers. First number, let A and B be integers, not both zeros. The largest integer D such that the number D, it should divide A as well as it should divide B. Then it is called the greatest common divisor of A and B. Greatest common divisor of A and B. So we denote it by GCD of A comma B. So greatest common divisor is denoted by GCD of A comma B. Example, what is GCD of 48 comma 72? So here 48 and 72 are nothing but A and B. Now I want to find the greatest common divisors that divides the number 48 as well as the number 72. First we frame the divisors, common divisors of 48 and 72. What are the numbers which divides the numbers 48 and 72? What are the numbers which divides both the numbers 48 and 72? First I'm just grouping the numbers. 1 divides both 48 and 72. 2 divides 3, 4, 6, 8, 12, 16 and 24. All these numbers divides both 48 and 72. Okay. So GCD of 48 and 72 is nothing but 24 because by the statement of greatest common divisor, the largest integer D which divides both A and B is called the greatest common divisor. So in all these divisors, which is my greatest number, 24 is my greatest number. So 24 is nothing but the greatest common divisor of 48 and 72. So we're writing this is GCD of 48 and 72 is equal to 24. What is GCD of 19 and 72? What is the common number here? Only one number can divide both 19 and 72. That is 1. 1 alone will divide both 17 and 72. 19 and 72. So what is GCD of 19 and 72? Is nothing but equal to 1. Only one number is there. It is the greatest common divisor. This is using prime factorization. A equal to P1 power A1, P2 power A2, and Pn power An. And B is equal to P1 power B1, P2 power B2, so on up to Pn power Bn. Where P1 less than P2, less than Pn, so on less than Pn. And ai comma b1 nothing but the natural numbers. I lies between 1 and n. So GCD, how can I write it here? GCD of a comma b equal to P1 of minimum of a1 comma b1, minimum of a2 comma b2, and last term Pn is Pn power minimum of an comma bn. This is the basic concept, unique prime factorization. You have been familiar in a BSc itself. A is equal to 60. I'm just giving some examples, that's all. A is equal to 60, that can be written as 2 square into 3 power 1 into 5 power 1. I'm just taking only the minimal over here. B is equal to 52. What I'm writing here, I'm just taking the factors here, children, first. So 2 power 1, 3 power 3 into 5 power 0. So now we are coming to the concept GCD of A comma B. So A is equal to 60. I'm just taking two numbers. A is equal to 60 and B is equal to 54. 60 I'm writing in terms of prime factors. 2 square into 3 power 1 into 5 power 4. In terms of powers, I'm writing it. Then also the next one, 2 power 1 into 3 power 3 into 5 power 0. The next GCD of A comma B, here, P1 is nothing but P1 power minimum of A1 comma B1. So here I have 2, here also I have 2. Here 2, I have the power 2. Here I have 2 power 1. So what is the minimum of 2 comma 1? It's nothing but 1. So I'm writing here 2 power 1 I'm taking here. Here I have 3, here also I have 3. In this 1 and 3, what is the minimum? Minimum of this they have taken as B1 and this power I have taken as B2. So sorry, A2. This is nothing but A2 and this is my B2. So minimum of A2 comma B2 is A2 is my minimum. So I'm writing here 3 comma 1. Then again 5 4 0. And here A3 and this is B3. A3 equal to 1 and B3 equal to 0. So my minimum of A3 comma B3 is B3. So 5 power 0. I'm just taking the minimal powers. I'm finding the answer. So this is my GCD of 60 comma 54. GCD of 60 comma 54. It's very, very important. It's very easy also, children. It's very, very easy also. Just have a glance. First, I'm writing in terms of prime factors. Then I'm choosing the minimal values. I'm writing. That is going to be my GCD of these two numbers. Relatively prime integers. So two integers A and B are relatively prime if GCD of A comma B equal to 1. GCD of A comma B equal to 1. So whenever two integers A and B are given, if I want to say those two numbers are relatively prime, then their GCD should be equal to 1. In such cases alone, I can say that those two integers are relatively prime. In the previous slides, we have seen one example where the GCD is only equal to 1 alone. Hope you remember. 19 comma, see here, what is GCD of 19 comma 72? GCD of 19 comma 72 equal to 1. In such cases, I can say this 19 and 17 are relatively prime. So two integers. I'm just 19 is one integer, 72 is another integer. Those two integers, I'm saying they are relatively prime because their GCD is equal to 1. Same thing here. Or 15 and 22 are relatively prime. Yes, because their GCD is equal to 1. Only the number 1 alone can divide both 15 and 28. There are no common divisors at all. Is it not? In such case, those numbers are known to be the relatively prime number. Or 55 and 28 are relatively prime. Yes, because it is equal to 1. Again, 35 and 28? No. Why? Because a number 7 is there which divides 35 as well as 28. 7 5s are 35, 7 4s are 28. So in this case, 35 and 28 are not relatively prime because their JCD is not equal to 1, which is nothing but 7. Pairwise. The next definition is the integers a1, a2, so on up to an are pairwise relatively prime if GCD of ai comma aj is equal to 1 whenever I and j lies between 1 and n. I should be less than j and at the same time their value should lies between 1 and n. Examples, okay, saying C. 15, 73 numbers I'm just taking 15, 17 and 27. Pairwise relatively prime. No, because first number and last number 15 and 27, they have a common divisor is 3. They only if they have it is equal to 1, I can come to the conclusion they are relatively prime. So 15, 17 and 27, they are not relatively pairwise relatively prime. Any two numbers in this 15, 17, 27, any two numbers you can take, and if you find the GCD is equal to 1 means, then I can come to the conclusion that it is relatively prime integers. But in this case, see here, the first number is 15 and the last number is 27, their GCD is equal to 3. So in such case, they are not pairwise relatively prime. So this terms itself I have to leave it. 15, 17 and 28. Just you see 15 and 28. Do you have any common number? No. 17 and 28. Do you have any common number? No. Then 15 and 17. Do you have any common number? No. So for all these things, except 1, they don't have any common divisor at all. Is it not? So see here. GCD of 15, 17 equal to 1. GCD of 15, 28 equal to 1 and GCD of 17, 28 is equal to 1. In all such cases, the GCD is equal to 1. So we call these numbers to be a pairwise relatively prime. Next. So after this, we have seen the greatest common divisor. Now we are going to get to the concept of least common multiples. The least common multiple of the positive integers a and b is the smallest positive integer that is divisible by both a and b. The least common multiple of the positive integers a and b is nothing but it is a smallest positive integer that is divided by both a and b. Okay, the least common multiple is nothing but a smallest positive integer. That number should be divided by both a and b. That we denoted by GCD of a comma b. Here we denoted by LCM of a comma b. Examples: LCM of 3 comma 7. Small, just multiple. That's all. 3 sounds are 21. And here LCM 4 comma 6. Then LCM of 5 comma 10. That is 4 divides 12, 24 and so on. The same time 6 divides 12, 24 and so on. But what is the smallest number? What is the smallest multiple? 12 is the smallest multiple, is it not? So see here, for example, 3 comma 7 is there. What are the multiples of 3 and what are the multiples of 7? What is the common multiple we have? And we have to see what is the smallest number also. What is the smallest number that is divided by both B3 and 7? We'll be having lot of multiples for 3 and lot of multiples for 7. It goes on. But in that we have to choose what is the common multiple. At the same time, what is the smallest multiple? In the common multiple, we have to see what is the smallest multiple which is divided by both 3 and 7. In such case, 21. So 21 is divided by 3 and 21 is divided by 7. Beyond that 21, any number is there which is divided by both 3 and 7. If I take 14, 7 divides 14, but 3 does not divide 14. Is it not? So 21 is the smallest multiple which is divided by both 3 and 7. At the same time, 4 and 6. 12. 12 is the smallest number which can be divided by both 4 and 6. 4 3s are 12, 6 2s are 12. Then beyond less than 12, do you have any number which is divided by both 4 and 6? No, there is no possibility. Same thing for 5 comma 10. 5 divides 10, 10 divides 10. That's all. Again, using prime factorization. See, this will be very interesting. That is chosen for minimum, is it not? See here. I'm taking two prime factorizations. A is equal to, B is equal to, and all the other things are same as it is in terms of GCD. Now you see LCM of A comma B equal to P1 power maximum of A1 comma B1. But there we saw minimum of A1 comma B1. So we have to see this difference. And P2 power maximum of A2 comma B2 and Pn power maximum of An comma Bn. Just see this example. Same example taking here. A is equal to 60, 2 square, 3 power 1, 5 power 1, B is equal to 54. Same example I'm taking it, but there I took minimum of the powers. Here I'm just going to take the maximum of the powers. See here. In the first two, here 2 square, here 2 power 1. What is the maximum? 2 squares. I'm just taking 2 square. Here 3 power 1, 3 power 3. So 3 power 3 is the maximum. So LCM means maximum, GCD means minimum. So 5 power 1, 5 power 0. So what is the maximum? 5 power 1. So just multiply it and get the answer as 540. Say LCM of two numbers. We'll be using prime factorization. You can use this method. We'll be using the concept of maximality. In terms of GCD, we'll be using the minimal concept. Same thing here. GCD and LCM. GCD means what I told you already, minimal. So 2 power n, 3 power n, 5 power 0. Same thing. LCM. What is LCM here? Maximum. 2 square, 3 cube, 5 power 1. Yeah, same thing. So what is the theorem we have here? A into B is equal to GCD of A comma B into LCM of A comma B. When you multiply A into B, what are you getting it here? What is the answer getting it here? When you multiply 60 into 54, what's the answer? Yes. Multiply these two, this and this, 3240. Here also we multiply this one. I'm getting here 3240. So when you multiply two numbers, this number should be equal to GCD of that number into LCM of that number. So 3240, if you multiply 60 and 54, I'm getting 3240. If you multiply the GCD and LCM of those two numbers, I'm getting 3240. So it is nothing but, theorem is nothing but A into B is equal to, it's the multiplication of the GCD and LCM. It's very, very important. And modular arithmetic, this will be, you all be studying in detail in the next unit. In terms of congruences, you'll be studying a lot. That A be an integer and M be a positive integer. We denote A mod M, the remainder when A is divided by M. A mod M, the remainder when A is divided by M. That is, we'll be writing it as A mod M is equal to the remainder when A is divided by M. So 9 mod 4 means what is it? This 9 is divided by 4. What will I get? 9 divided by 4 means what will I get? What will be my quotient? 2 will be my quotient and remainder is equal to 1. So 4 2s are 8 and remainder is equal to 1. So A mod M is nothing but equal to remainder. So 9 mod 4 equal to 1. Same thing here. 3 3s are 9, remainder is equal to 0. Again here 9 mod 9. This is also the same thing, is equal to 9 is the answer. Okay, nothing else. There is no possibility at all. So 9 cannot be divided by 10. So I have tried the answer as it is as 9 alone. So A mod M is equal to A in this if M is greater than A. M is greater than E. Only if it is getting divided, I can write the remainder. But here there is no possibility at all. So we are writing the number as it is. And minus 13 mod 4. Minus 13 mod 4. Minus 13 mod 4. That is equal to 3. That is equal to 3. Here also the same thing. We are applying the concept over here. The next Euclidean algorithm, it finds the greatest common divisors of two integers A and B. For example, if you want to find the GCD of 287, 91, we divide 287 by 91 as 287 is equal to 91 into 3 plus 14. Okay. Whereas 91 is the divisor, 287 is the dividend, 3 is the quotient, and 14 is the remainder. And we know this concept in the theorem itself. We have seen the first part of the theorem. If A divides B and A divides C, then A divides B plus C. Therefore, any divisor of 287 and 91, any divisor of 287 and 91 must also be a divisor of 287 minus 91 into 3 equal to 14. Minus 91 into 3 is equal to 14. So from this, what we will say here? A divides B and A divides C. And then A divides B plus C. Is it not? So same thing here. Any divisor of 287, 91. Any divisor of 287 and 91 must also be a divisor of subtraction of those three here. 287 minus 91 into 3, that is equal to 14. So if a number divides 287 and if a number divides 91, then its subtraction, it should also be divided by the same number. That is the thing given here, nothing else. That is the Euclidean algorithm. See here. Consequently, GCD of 287, 91 is equal to GCD of 14, 91. GCD of 14, 91. That's the thing. Next step, see. Next step, what are you doing? We divide 91 by 14. Again, this process goes on. 91 equal to 14 into 6 plus 7. This means that GCD of 14, 91 is equal to GCD of 14, 7. 14, 7. See here. GCD of 14, 91 is equal to GCD of 14, 7. In the previous slide, what we have seen? GCD of 287, 91 is equal to 14, 91. GCD of 14, 91. Here also the next process. GCD of 14, 91. Same process continues. 14, 91 is equal to 14, 7. So we divide 14 by 7 again. Again, see here. 14 is equal to 7 into 2 plus 0. This goes on. We find that 7 divides 14 and thus GCD of 14, 7 is equal to 7. Therefore, GCD of 287, 91 is equal to 7. Fantastically, they are given this step. See here. Fantastically, they are given here. We want to find GCD of 287, 91. This is the question. First, we divide 287 by 91. We have divided. We are writing in terms of A is equal to BQ plus R. We are writing it. Then we are using this concept for integers A, B, and C. If A divides B and A divides C, then A divides B plus C. Therefore, any divisor of 287 and 91 must also be a divisor of 287 minus 91 into 3. That is equal to 14. Okay. So next step, what they are given? Since they are told that it divides 287 minus 91 into 3, that is equal to 14. Is it not? So using that concept, we are saying that therefore GCD of 287, 91 is equal to GCD of 14, 91. Okay. So now we are saying that GCD of 14, 91. Next step, we divide 91 by 14. So 91, I can write it as 14 into 6 plus 7. This means GCD of 14, 91 is equal to GCD of 7, 14 or 14, 7. So now we divide again 14 by 7. 14 is equal to 7 into 2 plus 0. We find that 7 divides 14 and thus GCD of 14, 7 is equal to 7. Step by step, they have brought the process. See. From the directly, they are not finding the answer. Step by step process. This is the Euclidean algorithm. This is the process they have used here. Therefore, GCD of 287, 91 is equal to 7. In pseudocode method, how they are given here is they can be implemented as follows. GCD of A, B, positive integers, X is equal to A, I'm just proclaiming it, Y is equal to B, and here while Y not equal to 0, R is equal to X mod Y, X is equal to Y. You can apply edges, you can enter it and go for this concept here. Directly will be getting this answer in the pseudocode method. An example again. GCD of 143, 210. 143 writing is 1 into 110 plus 33. Again, that 110, see this number, bring it here, see. This 110 is equal to 3 into, using this reminder, 3 into 33 plus 11. Again, bring this 33 here. 33 is equal to 3 into this reminder plus 0. So GCD of 143, 110 is equal to the last number is 7. So directly you can find. It's very, very easy, very interesting also this one. Okay. So with this, the unit 1 gets completed. Thank you.